Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be covering tips from me from my personal experience of final partner interviews for the Big Four graduate schemes. I did get some feedback from a lot of the interviews that I didn't get through, so I can share those a little bit with you in this video today and also build on the tips that I think personally really helped me to build rapport and leave the interview feeling like it was a good conversation. Now, before I get into the bulk of this video, I wanted to say that I do have another video detailing all the tips for the actual application process and the run-up to actually landing your final partner interview, and I will link that video up in the corner, and literally am never going to remember which corner to point up at. And you should check that one out before this video because that one covers most of the steps that you would take before you actually get put forward for a partner interview. So let's talk about preparation. You're going to want to work on your mental approach to this day, to this hour. Obviously, it's a very anxiety driven and stressful time when you're trying to interview. You're going to be super nervous probably. Now, I landed my interview very last minute, so I only had 2.5 days to prepare. When I did my interview, we got given a question on a topic to do with audit, and we had to prepare a short presentation, literally 5 minutes, I think. It was 5 minutes max, short presentation to present to the partner. Part of your preparation should obviously be whatever you've been asked to do, but I think now the interview's changed where you don't have to prepare a presentation, but the interviewer will throw at you some industry related topical questions. I think generally they are expecting you to be a little bit on top of the industry or major events in the industry. Nothing too deep. They're not going to be expecting you to know everything that's going on, but if there are any major changes, any like accounting standards that are changing, big ones, for example, when I did my interview was the mandatory audit firm rotation that had just come about. So my presentation was to do on that. The only advantage to having that presentation to do was the fact that I knew what questions would be thrown at me, like what they would be about. But what I really want to focus on is like your actual checking in on your brain, yourself, your mental health just before this interview starts. I wish that I could have kind of gone into the interview thinking that it's just a meeting between me and the firm about whether each of us is going to be suited to each other. This is a lot harder as a graduate because you've gone through these like multiple rounds of application processes, all this kind of stuff before you actually end up at the spot. So you've kind of already pictured yourself there. You already know that the firm is probably right for you, and it is probably more up to them. But if you go in with the mindset that it is a two-way thing, it will help you feel a lot more at ease and a lot less like you are just under the spotlight for that hour and a half, 2 hours of your interview time. Another thing that I personally did in the run-up to my interview was practice talking in the mirror. I have mentioned this in a couple of videos, but I get extremely nervous and there's that immense pressure of a final interview hovering over you. I was practicing my answers for potential questions in the mirror and like talking to myself, looking at myself in the eye like I am with this camera lens right now, so it's kind of a little bit weird. Just practicing being me, just so that when it actually came to having to sit in that interview with that person that you don't know at all, you knew what you looked like and you knew how you were sounding and you knew that your sentences made sense. I don't know if this tip even makes sense, but I did it and it really helped. And finally, just be as prepared as you can be. Have your outfit sorted, have your transport sorted, have every single thing done and dusted so you do not have to worry about it. It's not taking up space in your brain. And finally, you have to just remember that if you don't get this job, the world will not end and you've got lessons to learn. You'll have feedback to build on and you will eventually get to your end point. I think failure is such a huge, horrible thing at the time, but failure just teaches you so much that looking back and hindsight is obviously a lovely thing to have now and it's a lovely thing to make videos about, but really remember at the time, if you don't get something, that it is not the end of the world and you are very talented for even getting to that final stage in the first place, and just to have faith in yourself because you will get there. Now to chat about the actual interview content. For the general commercial awareness and business acumen points within audit specifically, don't freak out about knowing everything, just kind of make sure you're vaguely on top of the industry as a whole. So then even if you get thrown a question, you could maybe even think on the spot, how would I answer this question based on what I know about the industry anyway? once you kind of land on a couple of news topics or pivotal things that are happening in the industry right now, I would think about how they would affect your career as a junior person on the team. And you can even combine this with your research on the firm itself, like if the firm have specific tools that they're developing, or if they're known for being better at certain aspects of audits or something, or if they're leading on certain aspects of audit. Tie that into how the news items will affect you in your role specifically, and even stakeholders around you. So your role, your manager's role, maybe the partner's role, and then on top of that, the firm's role as the kind of party that's leading that audit. For example, if you start talking about audit analytics, it's really easy to get kind of lost in the vast array of information there is on audit analytics. And when you're at that stage where you're just interviewing for a grad job, you do not need to know in-depth information. All you need to know is, right, how are audit analytics going to improve your job and your audit team's job? So it's obviously going to make a lot of things a lot more efficient. You can maybe think about specifically how, and that's up to you to think about. And it's you thinking about these things and telling your interviewer these things that's going to impress them, because it means that you've really thought about the industry and your job and how everything interlinks. Another thing to really think about is where you see yourself in the future in the eyes of the firm. So obviously you're going to be interviewing with a specific firm, and you're going to want to show them a certain level of eagerness to join that specific firm. So when you get asked about the future, they obviously want to know that you envision them as part of your future. So for example, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You're probably going to want to see yourself as maybe manager, or maybe, chasing the next promotion, just working towards something within the firm, and then be specific within that. So if you know that at your firm you'll be a manager in 5 years, there you go, that's your 5-year goal. It might not necessarily be your 5-year goal, but I think it's important to show the initiative that, once you start, you're not just going to sit back and put your legs out, but also the fact that you want to show a level of commitment as well. And then actual little things you can do during the interview that really help me. One major tip that helped me back then that I still do to this day, and I tell everyone to do, and it's really simple, and that is to really take advantage of sipping a glass of water. And this is going to sound really stupid, but you will get offered a glass of water, and I used to be silly enough to just turn it down because I thought it would distract me. I hated the fact that when I drank water, it was kind of like this awkward silence while you're drinking. You can hear the swallow, the glurp, and then sometimes you could hear it kind of like in your belly, depending on how nervous you are. But now I would 100% take advantage of that little silence while you're sipping your water, and listen to me when I tell you that no one thinks it's awkward except you. It's a tiny silence. It's maximum 10 seconds depending on how slow you swallow, and it gives you time to gather your thoughts, think about an answer, and also, most importantly for me, just really calm my anxiety, stop myself from freaking out, and just pull myself together in that 10 seconds. And that's the advantage of the 10 seconds feeling longer to you than it does to anyone else, is that you have that time to just gather yourself. This is something I do now. It's something that I think everyone should do, and I think that's the only reason you ever get offered glasses of water in an interview. Also to stop a tickly cough, because I think a tickly cough would definitely just ruin my nerves if I got that during an interview. But okay, sip that glass of water and sip it slowly. And the second thing that I like to do is try and almost smile while you're talking. Now I do this a little bit for my YouTube videos because it makes me feel a lot more at ease, and it makes me feel a lot more positive and also a lot more like myself. Try and do that when you're speaking to the interviewer. Like try and you're holding back a smile. It's going to change the energy you give off. It's going to definitely ease your nerves because you're smiling. That means you're not nervous. It means you're not sitting there like sweat. And honestly, being quite intentional about calming your nerves during an interview really helps. So 2 things, the water and the smiling, and you'll be fine. Then of course, just think about all the other factors that you're going to be susceptible to at that moment in time in that interview. For example, your location, the fact that it's a CA audit grad program, the fact that it's been you that's been selected. Those are things that you're probably likely to get asked interview questions about because they're quite specific things. You've selected those things when you applied for this grad scheme. And then the most important thing is to try and build rapport and just make sure that the conversation you're having is just a good conversation. Now, I tried to build rapport by being myself. I'm quite dorky and make bad jokes. So I took the opportunity to tell a bad accounting joke at the end of mine. I can't even remember what it is, but I do remember that I weaved it into the conversation quite well, so I was quite proud of myself for that. But I did read the room as well. Like, if my interviewer was not the kind of person who would have maybe received that well, I wouldn't have asked it, and I wouldn't have tried to do that, but I would have still tried to build some rapport. And you can build some rapport by asking questions back. So you will get an opportunity to do this at the end of the interview, but also take the opportunity to do it when you can and when it feels natural. I've got a really good list of potential questions you can ask in a document that I have up on my website that you can download for free called the Big Four Competency Bible. And this Bible also details a lot of potential competencies, values, firm values, and how you can answer those in the STAR format, which is also something I highly recommend doing throughout the interview, just so you stop yourself from waffling and have a very concise and to the point conversation that's going to eventually, hopefully, leave your interviewer impressed. Honesty, rapport, and the quality of your conversation is going to leave anyone impressed with, you know, that first time awkward interview scenario. And all of this I know is really easy for me to say, but hard to actually do. But honestly, rapport, relationship, and just reading the room and having just a generally a good conversation is really going to help in these kind of high pressured, high anxiety environments. Now, some feedback that I got from my interviews that I didn't get literally revolved around this. I actually got told once that I came off quite cold, which is definitely because I was not ready. I was not building rapport, and I was just far too nervous, which is why I really like to emphasize working on being okay, ready for the interview, knowing that, you know, you fully deserve to be there and that the world is not going to end if you don't get this job. That's the only thing that I can't emphasize anymore. And the other bit of feedback that I got was that my experience didn't seem like it tied in with the interviewer's questions that much and that well. So again, this was all because, you know, I didn't have my own competency Bible to practice off of, so get downloading that and get filling it out. It was because I did not have a good variety of experiences that I was pulling from, even though I have the variety behind me, I have them on my CV, but I wasn't using the right ones for the right competencies that I was being asked on. And then because I wasn't speaking them in STAR format, they weren't coming across very, very structured, and I ended up waffling, and I ended up obviously not answering the interviewer's questions that well. Show them who you really are. Show them that you're a genuine, sound person, just eager to learn the skills you don't have and kickstart your career at the best firm ever. And just show a little bit of eagerness and initiative to learn, you know, toe that line between I really, really need this job for my livelihood and I'm cool. And I really hope this video helped a little bit. I chat to you guys a lot in my DMs and have given this advice to a lot of you guys with upcoming partner interviews, and all of you guys have landed the job, which is literally amazing. So that's why I decided to compile all these tips into a video. I will be soon compiling them into another free downloadable document that I will put onto my website for you shortly. But thank you for watching this video, and if you do have any more questions, please feel free to reach out via email or by direct message on Instagram. I will see you next week. Bye.